What is happening, YouTube? Welcome to episode 3 of the screen printing project. Today's episode, we're going to be applying some speedball emulsion to some silk screens. One you saw me build in the last episode, the DIY one. Another one I've actually purchased from a shop, and I've got 2 test screens as well. Well, they're not actually screens at the moment, they're canvases. I'm going to show you how to repurpose a canvas frame into a silk screen frame. The DIY frame, I'm going to be applying the emulsion with the squeegee. The shop bought frame, I'm going to be applying the emulsion with this scoop coater, which is meant to make the job a lot easier. The reason why I'm not using this on my DIY one will become apparent later on in the episode. But for now, I need to get down to the gym. I will obviously put everything I used in this episode down in the description, links where you can purchase it all. So with that said, let me get to the gym and then we'll get back to it. Back to episode 3 of the screen printing project. Good little sweaty sesh down at the gym, as you've just seen, but now let's crack on. So what I mentioned in the first section of this video was that my scoop coater doesn't fit my screen that I made because I didn't measure anything, just put some wood together. So this is a scoop coater. It's like a little pig trough. Weird. Basically, you put the emulsion in there, and then you can just run it up the screen, and you get a nice, smooth, even coat of emulsion. But I won't be doing that because mine doesn't fit. It's about 1 inch too wide. In future, I won't have that problem because I'm not going to bother building my own screens again. Good for the experience, but it's just not. They're not that expensive, to be honest. So I'll just buy one that fits this nice and snug. So to cover it in emulsion first, you will take this bottle, which says bottle is not empty. It feels like it is. I think there's some sort of powder in there. So we've got to fill that half with, fill bottle to half full with cold water. And then I think we pour it into this one. And you mix it all up, and then you get a photosensitive solution of emulsion. Then you apply it to your screen. Now everyone I've seen online does this in a dark room, but the instructions, these very large instructions, say that you don't actually have to do it in a dark room. But I'm going to pull the blind down a little bit anyway, because I don't want it to start. I don't trust the instructions in it. I should do, because obviously the manufacturer knows what they're talking about. But, well, I'm just going to close the blind, so apologies if the lighting gets a bit terrible. So we're going to coat the screen, both sides, then let it dry in a dark area. And then we need to print off a design, expose it, either using the sun if it comes out, or I can use it. I've got a light I can use to expose it. A bit ghetto, but we'll make it work. Let's get on with it. Right, so off camera I just emulsioned the little tester screen, the second one, put some silk screen on that, emulsioned it, boom, it's in the cup of drying. Got a little fan on it. With the big one that I purchased, I've emulsioned that as you saw with the scoop coater. What I would say, get yourself a scoop coater, make sure it's the right size. It makes the whole emulsioning process so much easier. Like it's not even comparable to not using one. It's night and day difference. So get yourself a scoop coater, it's worth it. I say the wastage was virtually none with the emulsion, but when I did it without the scoop coater, there was emulsion everywhere. Wasted loads, but far too much on. So the scoop coater helps you even it all out. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to dry perfectly, and then we're going to rig up the Ghetto light rig. We're going to hang it off the Olympic rings, I think. Already had a little think about it. Then we're going to start exposing some screens. Right, let me explain what I've just been doing in that little time lapse. Firstly, I'm using a 400 watt halogen lamp. I live in England, I can't be using the sun. In the winter months I won't be able to make any screens whatsoever, so for consistent results, just got myself a lamp. Now I googled around, people use various wattages, so I had a 400 watt laying about, so I'm going to use that. I'll put a link down to, I'll try and find the same one, don't know how much it cost me now, but I'll add it all up at the end. Where was I? Right, once you've got your lamp, you need to unscrew the front of your lamp, take the glass out. The glass is going to stop some of the light getting to your screen, and then your exposure won't work properly, your exposure times will be off, and it'll be a mess, I think. I'm just going by what people say online. Additionally, you want to make sure you see me with a tape measure, measuring the distance from the bulb to the floor. Mine's 14 inches. Imagine that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The distance between my bulb and the floor is 14 inches. The reason being, you want to make sure, obviously your lamp is going to cast a beam of light, and outside of that it's going to be a shadow. So if you've got a small screen, which I'm doing with my test screens, it's not a problem. Easy to get the whole screen exposed. If you've got a bigger screen, you're going to need to move your lamp higher. That's also going to increase your exposure time. What is the exposure time? I'm going to get to that. That's what we're going to find out in the next little time lapse. With the small screens, I've put time increments of a minute. I don't know how many minutes it's going to take. Some people say they take 12 minutes, some 15, some 2. So we're just going to start 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, and I'm going to move a sheet of card down the screen every minute, and then we're going to put it in the shower. Hopefully one of them washes out, and then we'll know that's the time we need to expose the screen for. And then we can get onto the big screens. Let's go. Right, so you see me doing a little step test there in a time lapse. Let me show you what I was doing. So focus on this, come on, come on. So we've got minutes 1 to 7. Obviously this part was exposed for 7 minutes. This part was exposed for 1 minute. I washed it out in the shower, and can you guess from this which time we're going to be exposing for? 1 minute. Seemed to work. I assume pretty nice. It was the only one that came out, so it's the one we're going to go with. I've got a second test screen. I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm just going to rush it and go straight to the bigger screen. So what we need to do for that is this one I made earlier, innit? You need to get yourself some inkjet compatible acetate sheets. Now there's 2 here, both got the design printed on. Reason being, once you print this design out, if you hold it up to the light and you can see through the ink in your design, the lamp is also going to see through. the design and your exposure is not going to burn properly. So double it up, give it a double bagging, and your exposure will come out much better, much cleaner. Otherwise you'll have little tiny pinholes where the light can see through the ink. Now, once you've put that on top of your screen, reversed in my case, because I want it to read correctly when it's then printed on a t-shirt, you're going to put a big sheet of glass over the top. Now, bit weird that I said remove the glass from the lamp and then put a bigger sheet of glass over your design. I don't know, innit? I just read it online. Maybe the sheet of glass being bang on top of your design doesn't stop as much light than one being right in front of the source of the bulb. I don't know mate. Google it, innit? I ain't got a clue. Once you put that design and the glass on top, you're gonna bang your light on. I'm gonna leave it for about a minute because I've done my test screen. I know how long I want to be exposing for. Then I'm gonna take it off and wash it straight out in the shower with cold water. I've never done it with hot. Again, I just read it online, so I'm going with that. And that's that. Also, the other reason for the glass on top of the design, before I forget, is to keep your design tight against the screen. If there's like a tiny little air gap, light might start creeping in around the edges and give you like a feathered soft edge on your design. And if you want a crispy design like I do, you don't want that in it, so big sheet of glass. Use a picture. Take your mum's picture off the wall, just take the glass out the frame and she won't mind. She won't mind. But because I thought I was a top boy, I went straight in with the frame that I bought and emulsioned very nicely with a scoop coater. And I regret it because I exposed it for a minute and I got a design come out. It looks alright from a distance, doesn't it? Yeah. But no, when you look up close, I actually fudged it and had to touch it up with some emulsion. I had loads of pinholes, loads of them. The actual bit I wanted to stay on the screen started washing off in the shower. So I did a little bodge with some extra emulsion. I don't know if that's acceptable in the silk screen printing world, but I've done it anyway. But it annoyed me because that's my best square before it falls off the table. And then I adjusted my exposure time and used the frame I made myself, which didn't emulsion great. I'll show you a bit that didn't emulsion great. But it's all, look at that. Didn't get that on the frame, well I did get it a little bit but not as much. Apparently it's because there's grease on the silk, which makes sense. I'm a greasy geezer, so when I was making it, probably got a little bit of grease on my fingers, didn't I? So in future, fairy liquid, just wash it out after you've made the frame. Gets rid of the grease obviously. But I exposed this one for a little longer. A minute and a half. What have we got? Oh, what's that? A perfectly exposed screen, mate. Yeah. Come out alright, didn't it? Come out alright. Only problem is, this screen is narrower. So I don't have as much room to play with down the side, which I've read makes a big difference. You want to leave as much space as you can on the edges, because obviously when you're pushing the screen down to print, the edges aren't going to go down onto your t-shirt, for example, as easy as the centre is. But first time, innit? It's my first time. Secondly, a bigger problem, my squeegee is shorter than my design. So when I pass the ink over, it's going to cut the edges off. That's probably the biggest problem I've encountered in this entire project. I don't know how to fix that. But we'll just say it's all a test, isn't it? And then we'll get another frame and do it all again. And then we'll say that one's the production one. That's what we'll do. Alright, sweet. Let's do some printing. And what I've done here is just run some blue painter's tape around the edges, forming a nice seal around the edge of your screens. Reason being, the emulsion doesn't seal right up to the edges, so you're going to get paint seepage leaking out of the edge of your screens onto your t-shirt or garment or whatever item you're printing on. So get some masking tape, painter's tape, whatever, and just seal up those edges. Stop any paint seepage from occurring. Right, so screen is clamped, loaded onto the press. Design was a little off centre, so had to find the middle of the design, find that on here, and then make sure it is in the middle. There's a little mark there, middle of the pattern. First problem I've noticed, this is only a test print on some creased old coral horrific t-shirt, so the print, I would obviously ideally like it centre of the chest. But looking at this positioning, it's gonna put it down here. Now, if I move this down, the neck is gonna get underneath the screen, so it's not gonna sit properly. So I might just have to trim the platen a little bit, but we'll see how this comes out first. Also, little tip I picked up off the interwebs. The way screen printing works is this screen, you load it with ink or paint, and then you run your squeegee, it presses down onto the garment and leaves the design in paint or ink on the garment. Now, if this screen is sitting directly on top of what you're printing on, it can't really do that because you want it to briefly touch down and then lift back up. The way you make it do that is you get a 20p, stick some tape on it, and then I'm going to stick it to the underside of this one-handed. See how this goes. That goes like that. Not very straight. Only got one hand. Shut up, innit? And then when you put this down, it creates a gap. See that? Hopefully that's enough, because I've got no idea what size gap is. I just saw someone using a 2p, so I thought I'd one up them and use a 20. So let's fill this with paint. Let's do the first test print. Okay, so we knew my squeegee was a bit too short, so it hasn't got the edges, but that's okay for now. We can work that out. Let's see what we got. I mean, it's not, obviously the edges are missing, but do you know what? For a first print, I thought it would be a lot worse. Let me just flip this round and look at a professionally done one. I mean, mine is a bit more faded, but maybe I can do 2 passes and fix that. But I'm not upset. I didn't think it would come out that good first time. I know it's not good yet, innit? But I'm gonna give it another pass, see if you can do that, and then just bang out a few more tests. Right, what we've got here then, as you can see, if that stops focusing on my face, focus on the t-shirt. Top one looks visibly better than the bottom two. These two had 2 or 3 passes just to get the edges in this time. This one had 6 or 7 passes. I just wanted to try and dump as much paint on that as possible to try and make it less faded, which worked, but it's still not production quality for me. So I'm going to use the second screen with the same design, change this putrid colour t-shirt and use the black ink. Hopefully we get something looking a little better. Hold on a sodding moment. That's actually come out much better than the white ink paint even. Why do I keep calling it ink? Couple of things, just that corner's a little bit off, but looking at the screen, I didn't quite cover it properly. So, other than my technique being a bit shit, that has come out really nice. I'm impressed. I'm going to do a couple more test prints with the black. Looks like it's miles better than the white. And then we'll wrap this video up, we'll go through the costs. Happy, very happy. Jeez, look at that. That come out beautifully. What I have noticed is this black ink is a lot thicker than the white, which is probably why it's looking a bit better. I did shake both of them up, but the black is night and day difference. Obviously, excuse the pun, it's obviously black and white, there is a big difference. But the texture, the consistency of the paint, like the white was all running off of the screen at this point. So, I don't know, maybe I just need to shake the white a bit more. I'll give that another go. I'm going to play around with this one a bit more. Then I'm going to wash the screen out. Always make sure you wash the screens out. Cold water in the shower, because you don't want paint to dry in those little holes, because then you can't reuse it again. With that said, we're nearly done. Just as I say, I'll run through the costs in a second, and then we can finally wrap this video up. And here we are, the last scene. If you've got to the end of this video, I appreciate you, innit? Just drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. And let's get down to brass taxes. What did this project cost me? So, episode 1 and 2, grand total of £29.50. I wish I could say episode 3 was equally as cheap, but unfortunately there's some things I just had to buy. First thing I bought, however, was indulgent. Didn't need it, I just wanted to compare it to my budget DIY screen, and that was to buy a professional silk screen. That cost me 17 quid for a wooden one. The emulsion kit, you get the photosensitizer, the emulsion itself, and emulsion remover, 37 quid. That was the priciest item. The scoop coater, now you can do it without a scoop coater. However, I've done one screen with and one without, and I would say it's well worth the 15 quid. It's going to reduce your wastage of the emulsion, which is the most expensive part, so definitely worth it. The squeegee, you could probably make your own, but it was 13 quid and it worked. In my zero experience, it worked faultlessly. The paint, the black and the white, both tubs cost me 19 quid. I'm going to get some different paint and try one that has more of an enamelled finish. That is a bit more expensive, but for the purpose of a budget build, that was the cheapest I could find. Now the painter's tape, you can use masking tape if you've got that laying about. That was only 4 quid a roll, and you get loads out of that. You'll be able to tape off many screens. The acetate sheets that I printed the design on the clear sheets, I got 50 sheets of that for £15. Bear in mind you will probably be using 2 sheets per design to double bag it so that light can't get through. Also the glass that you put over the acetate when you're exposing, I actually robbed that from a picture frame that I had hanging up, so didn't actually pay anything for that, but I think you can pick picture frames up for a few quid. The lamp, however, I did mention I already had it from years ago, but it was an integral part. You can really do it without the lamp. So I found the exact same one on Amazon, 14 quid, not too bad at all. Grand total for episode 3, £134. Now, add that to episode 1 and 2, we're looking at £163 there or thereabouts. There might be something I forgot, like the drawing pins, but they're like £1 in the stationers. Now, if you were to buy a professionally made print screen press with all the other stuff that you need, it's going to cost you more than £163. I think the cheapest one I found, off the top of my head, I mentioned it in episode 1, I think it was like £100–150. So your quid's in. A little bit of labour, but I enjoyed it, so say nothing, innit? Say nothing. So there you have it, £163 budget build, start to finish. This isn't going to be the end for me for printing. I'm actually going to try and get it to a production level and hopefully sell some merch, so watch out for that. Follow me on the 10th Yards Instagram at the 10th Yards, and hopefully we'll get some products up soon. You might even buy something in it, that'd be sweet. But if you don't want to buy any of my crap, just drop a like in it, drop a comment, subscribe, and that's it from me. Until the next one.